Hey everyone, Jim Coventry from Rotowire here. This show is called Week 17 Fantasy Football Top 5 Players to Avoid. But at the end of the show, I've had some questions about quarterback streamers for Week 17 Fantasy Championship Week. And again, I'm going to look all over the board here. I've got Instagram over here. I've got Twitter, YouTube, Facebook over here. So I'll be looking around a bit. So I apologize in advance for that. But yes, stay tuned to the end of the show if you need quarterback streaming or DFS plays on some of the lesser rostered quarterbacks, ones are a little borderline. So very important to understand that as well. So hang with me here. But let's start out before a couple business notes here. If you're on YouTube, please smash the like and subscribe button. If you want 2 free days behind the Rotowire paywall, go to rotowire.com/try. Also, you want to catch all my material, please give me a follow at Jim Coventry NFL on Twitter. I do player threads, a few of those a week, prop bet threads. When the playoffs come, we'll be in full force getting you ready to bet on those games or play DFS or whatnot. Still got a little bit of cold, so sorry about the cough here. So yeah, anyway, follow me there. These videos, we do 5 a week. We will have the start sit one for this week, 2 hours for the Sunday games kickoff. We're back to having the gambling show with John Ryan on Saturdays on this platform. It won't be the Instagram platform because I have a second person on there. So if you want to join us here, you got to join us on the YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Those will be Saturday at 11:30 Eastern. All right, and always Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Channel. All right, let me shut up and get to the show here. All right, these are the players who are trending downward before we get to the quarterback streamers. DeAndre Swift. Now, 48% of the snaps the last 2 weeks. That is better than he had been seeing when it's a lot of 31% games. But he's only averaged 9 touches in those 2 games. Excuse me. So his snap share has gone up. His workload has been garbage. So, and Jamal Williams is getting significantly more work. Now, Williams hurt his leg last week. So there's that. If Williams is down, but Justin Jackson was already getting 25% of the work. So my guess is that if Williams misses, the 200-pound lowest body BMI guy like in the league, other than a kicker, he's probably going to continue to have a significant role. Look, with Swift, I think it's just simply this. Whatever it is at the coaching staff, I just don't think they're enamored with him. Whether it's those things, maybe he doesn't run the plays as they're called. Maybe he doesn't pass protect to their liking. It's got to be something behind the scenes because when we watch Swift play, there's no question about his talent. So for next year's fantasy leagues, if Dan Campbell is still there, I don't think you can responsibly rank DeAndre Swift as a fantasy starter because this is a Dan Campbell thing. And he will be the coach. They're playing well. They're going to have a chance of making the playoffs. So he's not going anywhere. So right now, we can't expect anything well out of Swift. And it doesn't matter who even the backups are because, like I said, Justin Jackson is getting significant work. So DeAndre Swift, this week they're playing the Bears. It's the drill. You know, if you need a running back between running back 40 and 48, and you're going to do the boom bust thing, hope he breaks a long run or takes a reception a long way, scores a touchdown. Those are all in play. But with just 9 touches a game, your floor is dangerously low with DeAndre Swift. Devin Singletary is next. So earlier in the season, he was seeing nearly 75, 80% of the snaps. That has ramped way down. James Cook is now seeing about 40% of the snaps a week. And what does that leave for Singletary? 50 to 60%. So that has been down for Singletary. Now, Cook's touches, and this is not about Cook. This is more about Singletary, but I'll just point this out. Cook's touches are still all over the board. We got a 5, a 7, and a 12 in the last 3 games. So the Cook's volatile because we don't know the workload's going to easy to get. Now back to Singletary, his touches, his ceiling has gone down. Floor is still okay. 9, 16, and 14 touches in the last 3 weeks. So Singletary's getting enough work to be that viable running back 2 for you. 12-team league, of course. They're playing Miami this week. Fundamentally, that's a bad matchup. Miami has been an outstanding run defense all year. We know that the Buffalo offensive line is not a good run blocking line. And so this is not a good matchup. If you're playing Singletary, it's as a floor play, knowing he'll get you 10 to 15 touches and banking on something happening with those. But there's a lot of downside, because if he doesn't score a touchdown, if those 10 carries turn into 38 yards against Miami, that's a real possibility. Understand there's significant downside. And then James Cook, again, the problem is we don't know if we're going to get that 5 or 7 touch game or that 14. If you're playing Cook, it's in the hopes that he breaks a 25, 30-yard play at some point or catches a screen in the red zone and takes it into the end zone. But again, bad matchup, uncertain touch volume. His snap share has been fairly stable at 40%. But that's where we need to understand. Nick Chubb, I think the foot is a bit of an issue. He's still okay for fantasy. If he's in your season-long leagues, you're playing him because he's gutting it out. He's getting enough done on the ground. In the last 3 weeks, he has 59 carries for 225 yards. And when you do the crude math on that, he's just under 4 yards per carry. He hasn't scored a touchdown, but he's still getting enough volume. So, again, in season-long leagues, right now, I think the foot's an issue. He said today he's going to finish the season out, so which tells us he's gutting it out. So you play him there. But in DFS, with his salary being where it's at, he is not a player you want to risk, because with the foot being less than 100%, that means his explosiveness is less than 100%, which means the big runs that we like to get from him may not be there. And then the opportunity to score touchdowns on longer plays. If he's in the red zone, he still has a chance to score. But again, season long, you play him for volume, but understand right now with that foot injury, that's a problem. And then look, Zonovan, thank you, Knight is, I don't know. You know what? He wasn't somebody that was targeted in the NFL draft. So sometimes we see players, they come in hot, but they are what they were. And, obviously he's very talented. He's in the NFL, and he did produce. And it was a weather game last week. So he's had 19 and 21 carries in his last 2 games, and he's played 45% of the snaps. But the last 2 games, including the weather game, he's not been productive. He had 3 games where he was really productive. He was getting at least 79 yards, 2 games at 100 scrimmage yards. But now, a little tape out on him. The offensive line isn't a very good run blocking line. Now they play Seattle this week, and it is a good matchup. Now, when Seattle comes into this game, we've seen Seattle. We saw them against the 49ers. They went out with the mindset to stop Christian McCaffrey, and for the most part, they slowed him down. It took him a lot of carries to get to 100 yards. And with the Jets, are they going to be worried about Mike White? Maybe not. I don't think he's going to strike fear into the defensive coordinator or Pete Carroll. So I do think they fundamentally will try to put a little more attention to the run, knowing the Jets want to win with defense in the running game. And so we're a little bit worried about that. So Zonovan Knight is a risky play, because if he's gotten figured out, if he got caught up with, and he's getting half the snaps. So it's not, the touches have been okay. Touches are still okay. But again, he's very risky in fantasy championship week. You rode the hot streak, but it might not come back. Depending on your options, if you want a floor play, I think you pencil him in for 40 to 85 yards, but that 40-yard game is there. All right, receivers, a couple of receivers before we get out of here. Davante Adams, before we get to the quarterbacks, remember, hang in here. If you want some quarterback talk for this week, there's a lot going on with week 17. All right, Davante Adams. So 9 catches for 114 yards over his last 3 games combined. The bigger problem is he's been targeted 25 times and caught 9. Derek Carr, when he's under pressure, Joey Bosa's on record, is publicly saying what we all knew, that Derek Carr, and I'll paraphrase, is not the same quarterback when he's under pressure. Well, guess who Joey Bosa's brother is? Nick Bosa. Guess who's playing Derek Carr this week? Nick Bosa on the 49ers. They're going to bring the heat on Derek Carr. Now, Davante Adams, you're starting him. You can't sit him. He's had 3 rough games. But if you made it to the fantasy championship game, you're not sitting Davante Adams, because Davante Adams can go for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns against anyone at any time. So you're playing him. DFS, you're a little bit nervous. The 49ers do not have the best set of cornerbacks in the world. Charvarius Ward, solid, very good player. But they have been stopping people when the quarterback has time. The Raiders' offensive line for pass blocking is not as good as they are for run blocking. And I do think the 49ers spend a lot of time in the backfield with Derek Carr. So I don't think it's an upside game. So Adams for DFS gets me a little nervous. He's a GPP play in DFS because, again, he could go off against any team at any time, regardless of situation. But you're hoping for a floor game here. You're hoping for a good high floor game, I should say, but knowing this is not optimal for Derek Carr. And if the 49ers have it their way, they're going to control the clock a bit. They're going to slow the game down, and they're going to push to a lower scoring game. Now, if they get out to a big lead early, that changes things. But again, the pressure could be problematic. And last thing, just look, you know this already, I'm sure. The Colts receivers. They have a good matchup against the Giants this week. But I think most of them are borderline unplayable. Paris Campbell, fewer than 20 yards in 3 of his last 4 games. Alec Pierce had that one game against Dallas where they took a couple deep shots. They connected on one, I think like a 20-yard pass. And I think that worked out pretty well. And other than that, though, he has been fewer than 30 yards in 6 of his last 7 games. As I told you guys last week, Nick Foles, hypersensitive to pressure, more than Matt Ryan. That was the implosion game was there the whole time. We knew that was coming because we knew the Chargers would pressure them. Well, they're playing the Giants this week. And the Giants have started to figure some things out. Kayvon Thibodeau is really going right now. He's playing really well. That pass rush is coming alive. That's bad timing for Nick Foles or Sam Ehlinger. Won't be Matt Ryan. So, look, Pittman, he's probably going to get you 7 targets. He's not going to get you much yardage. His last 3 games, similar to the Davante Adams stat line, 115 yards, but he's done on 16 catches. He's had the same amount of targets as Adams. They both had 25, both had the same yardage, but at least Pittman's caught more passes. So Pittman is low-end wide receiver 3 on PPR volume, 12-team league. Flex for sure. And so that's what we have to look at here. All right. Now, we're going to get to some quarterback streamers. Got a few questions. Maybe we could take a couple questions, then we'll get to the quarterback streamer. Brooks, you're in the finals of your league. Do I trust Cam Akers? Yes, I do trust Cam Akers this week. He's in my thread this week. So go to at Jim Coventry NFL on Twitter. Please check my running back thread. It came out yesterday, but you'll find it easily. And I broke down a lot of what Akers did. He's had 3 different seasons this year. I break it down in the thread for you. But he has a strong fantasy play this week. And then out of these 4, who do I prefer? Dobbins, Akers, Pacheco, Algier. Love Algier. I had him down last week. I was not for him last week. He was playing the Ravens. Figured he would not. Now, I did not foresee a world where Arthur Smith would run him about 7 times once the game was like down 2 scores late. And he hit the over on his prop. And I had bet him under. Stunned that, with potential playoffs on the line. And I know Arthur Smith's done this all year. But what I learned, though, in the last 2 weeks, Algier has rocketed past Cordero Patterson's 35 to 21 in the carries, yards per carry 6 to 3. So that's not even close. Algier is playing at a really high level. They are playing the Cardinals, who can't stop the run at all. And we know Arthur Smith will run. This game will not likely be where Arizona has a big lead. So Algier could flirt with 20 carries in this game. So I like Algier and I like Akers. Dobbins, look, I love Dobbins, but he had 120-something yards against Pittsburgh last time they played. But we're seeing the volume is a problem. He's only getting 11 to 15 carries a game, and he's not getting many targets. If he doesn't break a long run, if he doesn't score a touchdown, his floor is very problematic. So we love J.K. Dobbins, but the way that his coach is using him, that's the problem. Back in 2020, he scored like in his last 7 games. That boosted his fantasy value. He only had like 100-yard game in that stretch, but it was on the back of touchdowns, and we can't count on those, right? So, but if you don't trust Akers, you can go Dobbins. But Akers, I do believe, is in an excellent spot this week. They're playing the Chargers. The Chargers are not a strong run defense. Now, they will put some assets to stop the run because they're not scared of Baker Mayfield. But, again, this game, the Chargers don't blow anybody out. So Akers should be relevant for 4 quarters. And Pacheco, you know what? Given your other options, the volume's better for the other options. Therefore, I like them better. MV, will Christian Watson be okay, or would I go Drake London or Gabe Davis? Well, the one thing I'll say about Drake London is this. He's getting funneled volume, and that's key. He's had 70 yards or more in the last 3 games, 2 of those with Desmond Ridder, but the volume's there. And even though they're going to run, when they pass, it's going to London. And Byron Murphy, corner, is out for the season. Not that he was doing great, but that's a depleted team. So I think you go Drake London. I think his floor is exceptional right now. He is just so far the alpha in that offense. Whereas Christian Watson, we get Romeo Doubs is involved a little bit, and Alan Lazard's involved a little bit, and they want to run the ball. It's a great matchup for Watson. So Watson's your boom bust play. And he's been like 40-ish yards in like most of his late games. He's boom bust though. Could he score multiple touchdowns? Yes. Now the touchdowns have started to dry up lately. London is your safe high floor play. I'm not looking at Gabe Davis here. Matchup isn't bad. He just hasn't had enough ceiling to justify the floor. Whereas Watson's your boom bust. London's getting so many targets that he's your guy. All right. And then Raider Trader, don't trust Herbert in the final serve. Well, so yeah, here's the thing. Justin Herbert has been like 1 or fewer touchdown passes like in 9 games this year. And it's like most of the recent games, it's like 1 touchdown or less. So it's very problematic. Purdy is pretty much your lock for 2 touchdowns, which he's gotten every game he's played. However, his yardage is always low. And if they somehow run in those touchdowns instead of pass them, you're left with a 200-yard game. So look, I get it with Herbert. He's going to throw for his 300 yards. It's not like the Rams are stopping him. I know he didn't throw for 300 last week. The Colts look good on defense. The Colts look really good. But with no Aaron Donald, no A'Shawn Robinson, there's really not a pass rush there. So I think Herbert, I think Herbert's floor, if he gets the 1 touchdown and Purdy gets his 2, I think Herbert still has enough yardage to cover Purdy. So I'm not going to sit Justin Herbert here because Purdy doesn't have a ceiling. But if Herbert gets hot, look, last week, if Keenan Allen doesn't like step out on that play, lose his balance or whatever, and I didn't know he stepped out. I was stunned they had the ball on the 20-yard line. There was a touchdown there. And anyway, I'm going to go with Herbert there. James Cook or Chuba. So here's the deal with James Cook. I mentioned earlier in the show, 5, 9, 14 touches. They're playing Miami. Miami's a great run defense. Chuba Hubbard, he's playing Tampa, but we're not worried about Tampa right now. Now, Vita Vea, if he's out again, that almost makes it a lock for Hubbard. If Vita Vea plays, I might start looking at Cook, but Hubbard has been viable. He's getting consistent work. He's producing as a runner or receiver. And look, Tampa Bay is not a good team right now. And so I would be inclined to start Chuba. Now, if Vita Vea is playing, we find that out, I might consider Cook, but the workload is too inconsistent. Chuba is a big part of that offense. London, Cook, Aaron Jones, or Algier. So, look, Aaron Jones has an ankle, but we've seen whenever he's dinged, the problem is that Dylan's getting more work now. It became Aaron Jones' backfield. He was playing 70% like 3 weeks in a row. He had taken that backfield over. But the injuries cropped up, and now it's like 50-50 again. And if Jones has any setback, they just put him on the sideline for like 10 minutes at a time. So I got to recommend Algier here. Algier is a better floor than Jones. Now, Aaron Jones always has a ceiling. If his ankle's okay, he can go off against any team at any time. He can put up a 30-point fantasy game. Algier is way more likely to score you 15 fantasy points than Aaron Jones, but Aaron Jones is the one that can hit 30. So if you're a big underdog, I think you go Aaron Jones. But if you're reasonably in a somewhat even game, I think you go to Algier. Cameron, you're welcome. Angelo, hesitant to start Adams because of Carr. Look, it depends on your option. He's Davante Adams, right? He doesn't need much to make things work. It's been 3 bad weeks. But if you advanced, and I don't trust Derek Carr. I don't trust him at all. Like I said earlier, he's got 9 of 25 targets. That's Carr. That's not Adams. That's Carr. But, it depends on your options. You better really have a very reliable option to put in there if you're going to make that move. Marcos, Goff or Eagles quarterback this week? Let me start that. I'll move that question to the quarterback streamer section. Excuse me. I'm sorry about this cough, guys. It's really been struggling with this cold here. Brad, one more. DeAndre, if Colt starts. DeAndre Carter, Colt McCoy, DeAndre Hopkins, okay, or Garrett Wilson. You know what? This is pretty even. Mike White, the PPR games for Garrett Wilson are something like 23, 22, and 13.8 in the last 3 or something like that. It's a better floor than DeAndre Hopkins. If you look at his game logs, the yardage like the last 6 weeks, down every game. And they're playing Atlanta, so it's a good matchup. I don't know that DeAndre Hopkins' floor is any worse than Garrett Wilson's. At this point, we've seen two 20-point games out of Garrett Wilson recently with Mike White. And Seattle, I'm not worried about Seattle. I'm not worried about Tariq Woolen. Garrett Wilson wants his routes all over the field. He'll play in the slot. He'll play outside. He can win. I'm not worried about him. I'm going to go 55 and 45 on Garrett Wilson. If you got a gut feel, go with it. Joey, Stephon Diggs burns you. Can you will somebody if you come in third? I hope you do. Yeah. And then Juju or Dotson. So Juju is going to face the outside corners of Denver, which is a tough matchup, but he runs inside routes a lot. So he's going to avoid a lot of the press coverage when they play that. And he'll have a floor for you. Last week, the game didn't go well, but it was a bad weather game. So we can kind of take a pass on that. When Juju's been on the field, he's been getting that. When he's been healthy, he had that concussion where it was about a 3-week period where he lost numbers. But before that, and then once he settled back in and take away last week's bad weather game with winds and sub-zero wind chills, it was basically Juju was getting about 8 catches, about 80, 90 yards. He had a really good floor. So Juju's your floor play. And I don't know how high of a ceiling Dotson has. I love Dotson. Dotson has touchdowns at 3 straight games, like 54, 70, something in 100 yards in the last 3 games. And then when you go back before the injury, he was even scoring touchdowns then. But ultimately, I think Juju gets more volume here. The Cleveland-Washington game, I expect to be lower volume, lower scoring, more running. Whereas, look, the Chiefs are going to throw. That's the way they're at home. That's the way it's going to be. They're going to throw the ball. Double checking they're at home. I'm sure they are. But yeah, they're at home. So I'm going to go Juju for the floor here. And knowing that I think Juju's ceiling is right where Dotson's is at. I'm going to go with Juju. All right, let's get to some questions. Remember, if you're on YouTube, please smash the like and subscribe button. Join us over at Rotowire a couple days free. If you're on Twitter or YouTube, the information is right there. Please check that out. Let's talk some quarterback streamers. Start out with Marcos' question. We're going to go through a bunch of quarterbacks here. And of these quarterbacks, we're going to determine which ones are what level of streaming options they are. Now, some of them are going to be rostered leagues. I get it, but different size leagues. You know how that goes. So Jared Goff, love Jared Goff this week. At home, he has multiple touchdowns in all but the game against Miami. It's 20 touchdowns in 8 games. I want to say it's 300 yards and 3 of his last 5, close to that. Right there, he's dynamite at home. And Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator, has really set him up for success. The Bears are down 2 corners. Joey, you're welcome. The Bears are down 2 corners. They don't get any pass rush. This is a very, very good spot for Jared Goff. I have Goff safely in my top 7 quarterbacks this week. Will not blink. Last week, look, he got it done. It was garbage time, and it worked out. On the road, he hasn't been good. But at home, no apprehension against the Bears. I think that game shoots out, too. I will talk about Gardner Minshew in the segment. All right. And I'll leave that on there. Thank you, Joey. All right. Geno Smith. Now, Geno Smith has 1 touchdown pass in each of his last 2 games. It was the 49ers who had his number early in the season as well. And then last week, it was a weather game. It was against the Chiefs. It was sub-zero wind chill. Winds were in the, close to 15. It was not an easy game to play in. And the Chiefs brought it defensively. But now they're playing the Jets. Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed are playing at such a high level. Don't know if Tyler Lockett's going to play, but I don't think Metcalf has a game here. I don't think he gets going if he's on Sauce Gardner. DJ Reed, I think, can hold his own, even if he gets some safety help if he needs it. I think this is another 1 touchdown game for Geno. This is not a good finish to the season. It's not his fault. Geno's been a good quarterback this season. He runs a Shane Waldron offense very well. I just think in the last 3 games, two really tough opponents and 1 weather game, I just think it ended on a bad note. I don't like Geno Smith this week. I'm going to project him for 225 yards and a touchdown. That's it. And I hope he gets there. But if the Jets have success running the ball and shorten it, that could be problematic. Geno Smith, the two tackles they drafted have been very good, Lucas and Cross. But we saw it with 49ers game. They brought the pressure on him, and it was problematic. And now the Jets did not show up for that Thursday night game. Don't know what the deal was. They did not show up defensively. I don't think Robert Saleh lets that happen. I think they're going to come in on a mission here defensively. Aaron Rodgers is one. I know, again, he's rostered in a lot of leagues, but not all leagues. In some leagues, you have him on a roster and it's with another quarterback. He has one touchdown pass in each of his last 3 games. The matchup with Miami could not have been much better. He gets Minnesota this week. Now, Minnesota's a similar matchup to Miami. They blitz. They bring some pressure. Well, I shouldn't say they blitz. They blitz a bit. They can get pressure. They can get pressure. 3 good rushers on Minnesota. They can get pressure. They're terrible in coverage. They're very good against the run. Same profile as Miami. But the offense is very conservative. They're going to try to run the ball. That's what they want to do. So, look, it's hard to endorse Rodgers right now. The yardage is often low. The yardage is often below 230, 240. You're hoping he gets you multiple touchdowns and he gets it going with Christian Watson. He certainly can. I see Rodgers as a boom bust type play. I got a cough again. I'm sorry. I'll be better soon. So Rodgers' floor is problematic. But based on your other options, you'll know he'll get you a touchdown. He'll get you a touchdown. He'll get you 225. There is ceiling potential against this opponent, but he hasn't shown the ability to consistently attack that. And here's the thing. If they fell way behind, that's where Rodgers, like against Dallas, Dallas had some injuries on defense in that game too. People don't talk about that enough. Anthony Brown went out, and they were down Anthony Barr at linebacker, and they moved Micah Parsons out of his pass rushing role into a coverage role. That was real smart. And then Rodgers had a huge fourth quarter. That was his big game. And so it was one of those things where, well, if the Cowboys did their job, it wouldn't happen. So Rodgers is tough. He's a floor play, and that's it. And it's not a high floor. Teddy Bridgewater, because Tua's not playing Sunday. And Teddy Bridgewater, they're playing New England. I got a cough again. I'm sorry. All right. So in the game between Miami and New England has been a good defense, middling against the run, against the pass. Pressure rate, a little better than average. Basically, though, the thing is their corners are often overmatched. And you can't play zone against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and think you're going to get away with it because Teddy, like Tua, can find the creases in the zone and then and they can't play man again. So the key was with Tua, if you press the receivers, Tua couldn't drop it in the bucket over the top. And he wasn't. We saw the pass. He was struggling. He likes throwing it in the zone windows. I think Teddy could feather that pass. I think he's a different quarterback that way. I think Teddy's a decent play this week. I think Teddy's got 2 touchdowns and 240 yards in the tank here. New England's going to stuff the run. And I don't know how committed Miami's going to be to the run. And Teddy gets the targets to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I think Teddy is a solid play this week. He's still Teddy Bridgewater. There's still the implosion game there, right? New England gets enough pressure. It could be a problem. I still think it's 240 and 2 touchdowns this week. Daniel Jones against Indianapolis. I'm sorry, guys. Just struggling here with this cold. All right. So Daniel Jones playing Indy. I expect Giants are going to run the ball. I expect Indy's going to run the ball. Both teams are going to have success on the ground. Neither team's going to have to throw a lot. Jones is going to get some rushing yards, but I don't think they're going to need to pass here. And, you know, the Colts are playing well on defense. I think Saquon Barkley's going to get his, but it's going to be a low-volume game. This game could end up like 16-13. I don't think Daniel Jones is a strong fantasy play this week. He can get you 40 yards rushing. I just don't see a lot of points being scored here. So I have apprehension about Daniel Jones. Minshew against New Orleans. New Orleans is not as good as they used to be against the run, but they're middling. And I don't think Philly sees this as a game where they come in and say, let's dominate the run. Now, Lane Johnson's out, the tackle. He has a core injury. That's big. I think in the run game, that's going to be problematic too. Now, the Saints, a little below average in coverage. They have not gotten much pressure on the quarterback. Even without Lane Johnson, I think they still protect Minshew. Minshew, like Teddy, I pushed Minshew all over the place last week. Recommend him anywhere and everywhere. Start him. Hopefully he helped you. He won't have last week. It's not going to get that 300-yard game with 3 total touchdowns. But Minshew's a very good floor play. Marshawn Lattimore hasn't played forever. Don't know what his deal is. But if he comes back, I can't see his stamina being right. A.J. Brown isn't the same profile of physical receiver Lattimore. Lattimore does basically the boundary receiver, right? A.J. Brown is more the in-breaker. So it's a different type of receiver. Devontae Smith's a mismatch for them. And I think Minshew, like last week, I think he is floor 230 and 2 touchdowns. And I think he's a very good streamer. I don't know it's a big ceiling game, but like Teddy Bridgewater, he's a very good floor play this week. Carson Wentz against Cleveland. Of course we get this question. Cleveland, though, top 7 pressure rate per Pro Football Focus, facing the 24th ranked pass protecting line per Pro Football Focus. And so it's not a good matchup that way. I expect both Cleveland and Washington to come in with the mindset to run the ball. And they will. They'll run the ball. And I think both teams will have some success on the ground. That's going to shorten the game. Not a lot of pass attempts. So when those pass attempts go up, I think the main focus of the defense is on Terry McLaurin. I think Jahan Dotson gets a sneaky game here. I think he gets you 7 targets. I think he gets you 65 yards. And he's been very good in the red zone. He gives you a chance to score. McLaurin's a little more boom or bust, but you don't sit him in fantasy championship, I don't think. Because ultimately, even if they put attention on him, we've seen it. He can win. He can win against any type of coverage. He's an excellent receiver. So Terry McLaurin gets targets too. So I think the targets, even though there won't be a lot of passing, there'll be enough of them for Dotson and McLaurin to see targets. They're not ceiling plays this week, but they're floor plays. And there's nothing wrong with a good floor play. You need points in fantasy championship week. Not every player is going to score you 40 or 30. You need those 12 to 15s in there. You need those. And I think that's what you're looking at from these receivers. Brock Purdy against the Raiders. We talked about him a little earlier. I think I covered him. Actually, I think I did cover him. No, I didn't cover him. We'll talk about him for a minute. So Brock Purdy's thrown exactly 2 touchdown passes in every game he's played for the 49ers. Great. The yardage hasn't been there. He had a 230, I believe, last week, but otherwise like 200 yards a game. 49ers want to run the ball. The passing is very efficient passing. They're counting on some yardage after the catch. George Kittle has really come through the last couple of weeks. Big yardage after the catch. Ultimately, Purdy's yardage is so low, he's not a ceiling play. The 2 touchdowns, I think the 2 touchdowns continue. The Raiders are struggling. The Denzel Perryman linebacker is down. That's going to hurt their front 7, their pressure rate overall. Max Crosby's still there, but, they can't. Blitzing's going to be a little more difficult, I think. They're going to have to worry about the middle of the field against the 49ers. That's always a big concern. So I think Purdy has a floor game. I think he gets you that 215. Gets you, I'm not going to say he's not getting 2 touchdowns. He gets it every game. Whether it's he throws to McCaffrey, whether he throws to Kittle, Ayuk, he's going to get you that floor game. But I think that there's not a big ceiling here. And then Mike White against Seattle is interesting. Clearly, the team gets a jolt when he's in there. And Seattle had that good run in the middle of the season where they're getting pressure and they were covering really well. That hasn't been the case. And overall, Seattle's a bottom 9 pass coverage team per Pro Football Focus. Their pressure rate is bottom 2. And so Mike White's going to have some time to throw. And ultimately, Seattle's been struggling against the run. But I think Pete Carroll's going to expect they're going to want to come out and run. So I think they're going to come in and try to stop the run. And I think Mike White's going to have some success. And he loves throwing to Garrett Wilson. And he'll actually throw to Tyler Conklin, which works out really well. So Mike White, I think he has a sneaky ceiling here. I'm going to call him boom bust. Some of these guys like Minshew, Bridgewater, they are the best floor plays of the week. But if you are between them and Mike White has a lower floor. But this game, we could see Mike White get some big plays. Garrett Wilson. Now, I still think the Jets defense is more likely to slow down Seattle and keep us lower scoring. So Mike White's volatile. If this game goes off script and it turns into a shootout, Mike White could throw 303 touchdowns. But I think 7 out of 10 times this game's played, we don't get that. So I think Mike White is in that box with Minshew and with Teddy Bridgewater. But I like Teddy's and Minshew's weapons better than I like Mike White's weapons. So I'm going to put Mike White at the bottom of that trio because the ability of, get Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle for Bridgewater and, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I think those, I want to hitch my wagon to the receivers and the quarterback over Mike White. Hopefully that helped. So if you guys come up with questions, remember, give me a follow at Jim Coventry NFL on Twitter. If you have questions about these, go ahead and shoot it my way so I can get that answered for you and get things figured out. Appreciate your time. Be back this weekend. Got a Saturday show, the gambling show, 11:30 a.m. Prop bets, DFS, gambling with John Ryan. We got the Sunday 2 hours for kickoff, the live stream, start, sit, save your questions for there. I'll give you the why. You can break it all down for you. And if you're a SiriusXM subscriber, Saturday, 1 to 3 Eastern, channel 87. Sunday, 9 to 10 Eastern. Catch me there. Everybody, thank you for your time. Catch me on rotowire.com. Have a great day. We will talk soon.